Drinking buddies, this is one of the best winter release whiskeys out there, and I bet you've never heard of it. Let's go.
I'm your drinking buddy.
So I thought we would compare last year's Ode to Islay to this year's Ode to Islay from Whiskey Del Bach. What is Whiskey Del Bach, you might ask? Well, it's a small distillery here in Tucson, Arizona, and they do a lot of really interesting things with single malts. They also have a rye. It's MGP 95.5, finished here in Tucson with mesquited barrels, and it's also given a mesquite filtration process similar to the Lincoln County method. If you like rye, I think you'll like the Sentinel. But everything else they do is single malts. And as you guys know, I am a bourbon and rye first person. So why am I talking about single malts? Well, if I'm buying a single malt, it's probably Whiskey Del Bach because I really like what they do. And there's another elephant in the room. You guys know I don't really like peat. So how can I recommend something called Ode to Islay? Well, Whiskey Del Bach whiskeys, when they're smoked, are not peated, they're mesquited. So here in the Southwest, we have mesquite trees, and they are everywhere. And the founder used to be a furniture maker, and he had all this leftover mesquite, and he realized that you could, if you made a good enough single malt and you smoked that malt with whiskey with mesquite, you could make a really great whiskey. So that's kind of the basis of what they do. And now they have an excellent master distiller. I've had him on the channel, Mark Verthaler. Mark Verthaler. I'm probably saying it wrong. I know I said it right when I talked to him, but anyway, long story short, last year's version is 110 proof single malt, finished in bourbon barrels. And this year's version is 110 proof single malt, finished in rye barrels. So let's go into last year's first. It's got pretty much all of the Whiskey Del Bach stuff has a little bit of a chocolate thing on the nose to me. The smoke doesn't really come through that strongly on the nose. It's there, but it's very subtle. It's more like, it does have like a little bit of a smoked meat thing, like barbecue. Giving me more barbecue vibes than like the Band-Aids and iodine things you might get off of a peated whiskey. Also honey. Okay, so it's really cool how this works because the palate, that honey thing carries through and you get that nice like dark chocolate thing. There's like some maltiness in here and it's all just like nice and sweet in there. And then you swallow and your entire mouth like dries out into this mesquite-y, smoky quality. It's a really cool effect that happens with this one. That's one of the things I like most about this whiskey is the really interesting mouthfeel and finish. Because there's definitely some tannic oak that comes through on here. That's the mesquite coming through. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but it kind of dries out your tongue and does that really cool thing. It's pretty fun, but is it better with rye barrels? Oh, I like the nose better. This has been open since last year and this is a fresh crack. Yeah, the nose has got, if you gave this nose to me, I might think it's a rye actually. I don't know if that's just in my head because I know it's finished in rye barrels, but there is a really cool rye spice thing coming through. So it's rye spice and cinnamon and that honey and chocolate thing are there, but they're more subtle. Okay, so I really liked last year's, and I think this is even better. This is like a bourbon and rye drinker single malt right here. Oh, okay, I see them now. There's pictographs on the label, and I guess I've just never noticed it before. But here in Tucson, some historical facts for you here. There are some ancient native sites here in Tucson, like near Tucson, like 10 minutes out of town, where you can go look at some of the ancient pictographs on the walls that were drawn by ancient natives, and they're on the bottle. And I didn't notice it, except that you can see it on the back of the label. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Maybe they're supposed to be. I might be stupid, and I might be just looking at constellations. But either way, I think my story about the history of Tucson was cool. So maybe they're pictographs, maybe they're just constellations. Yeah, I think last year's was much smokier. I like that quality you got off it, where it's really sweet and then you swallow and it gets really smoky. But I think this is a better whiskey, and I like that one. This one is. There's some nice tobacco coming through on here. It is smoky, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell you this isn't smoky. It's definitely very smoky, but it's less smoky than this one. And I feel like the rye barrels complement the smoke better. Whiskey Del Bach, you knocked this one out of the park. So if you're new to single malts and you like high proof stuff, this might be a good place to start because it's 110 proof. Maybe you're a Scotch lover or a Irish lover and you want to experiment with an American single malt. I think this would be a great place to start. And then maybe you're just a bourbon or rye fan and you want to venture out a little bit. I think this would be a great place to start. Last year's, I probably wouldn't have recommended to that third category. I don't think I would have said, hey, you're looking to get into American single malts and you like bourbon and rye, get the Ode to Islay. But this year, I think I would make that recommendation because the smokiness is complemented and more tamed down by the rye barrel, I think. Yeah, last year I would have recommended this to people who like single malts, and this one I'm going to recommend to people who like whiskey. Anyway, drinking buddies, I really appreciate every single one of you. Every time you guys like the video, every time you guys subscribe, you make this thing possible. We will see you on the next one. Cheers.